My mother stood in the middle of my office lobby, looked up at the 30-foot glass wall with my company's name on it, and said loud enough for my employees to hear, "So this is what success did to you." Not congratulations, not I'm proud of you, not we always knew you could do it. Just that. Like the building was evidence of a crime. Like the woman I had become was someone she needed to mourn. My father stood beside her in his brown church shoes, the ones he only wore when he wanted people to think he was a decent man. My younger brother, Caleb, leaned against the reception desk with that same lazy smile he had worn all my life. The smile of someone who had never had to ask twice for anything. Behind them, my assistant was frozen with a stack of client folders in her hand. 3 investors were waiting upstairs, and in my blazer pocket, my phone kept vibrating with messages from the lawyer I had hired 2 weeks earlier. Because my parents hadn't come to visit me. They had come to take something. Again. Only this time, they didn't know I had already seen the documents. They didn't know I had the bank records. They didn't know I had proof of what they had done to me 10 years earlier. And they definitely didn't know that by the end of that afternoon, the whole family would finally understand one thing. Success hadn't changed me. The truth had changed them. I looked at my mother for a long second. She was still beautiful in that controlled, church lady way. Perfect hair, pearl earrings, soft lipstick, a face trained to look wounded at exactly the right moment. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. That told me almost everything. Caleb did. That told me the rest. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My mother placed a hand over her chest like I had slapped her. "Is that how you greet your parents now?" There it was, the old trick. Turn every boundary into cruelty. Turn every question into disrespect. I heard my receptionist inhale quietly. I kept my voice calm. "You didn't schedule a visit." "We're family," Caleb said. "Since when do we need an appointment?" "Since you walked into my workplace during business hours." His smile twitched. My father finally looked at me. "Mara, don't start." That name in his mouth did something to me. Not because I liked hearing it, because I remembered being 17, standing in our kitchen with a college acceptance letter in my hand, while he told me there was no money left. Not, "We're sorry." Not, "We made a mistake." Just, "Your brother needs it more." And that was how my future disappeared. At least that was the version they gave me. For years, I believed it. For years, I worked double shifts, took night classes, ate cheap noodles in studio apartments with broken heaters, and told myself I was building character. Then 2 weeks ago, a woman named Elise Park called me from a law office in Richmond and said, "Ms. Whitaker, I think there's something about your grandfather's trust you need to see." That phone call changed the shape of my entire life. But my family didn't know that yet. They only knew what they always knew. Mara would bend. Mara would feel guilty. Mara would fix it. Mara would pay. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice as if privacy could erase the fact that she had just insulted me in my own lobby. "We need to talk upstairs." "No." Her eyes sharpened, just for half a second. Then the softness returned. "Mara, your brother is in trouble." Of course he was. Caleb had been in trouble since middle school, and somehow the solution was always my sacrifice. When he crashed my father's truck at 16, I lost my summer job money to help cover repairs. When he failed out of college the first time, I was asked to tutor him while working nights. When he got engaged to a woman he couldn't afford to marry, my parents asked me to quietly help with a little something. When his business failed, they called it bad luck. When mine succeeded, they called it arrogance. "What kind of trouble?" I asked. Caleb pushed himself off the desk. "Nothing dramatic." That meant it was dramatic. My mother turned toward him with warning in her eyes, then back to me. "The bank is threatening foreclosure on the house." For a moment I thought I had misheard. "The house?" "Our house," my father said. The house I had cleaned every Saturday growing up. The house where my bedroom became Caleb's gaming room 6 months after I moved out. The house where my mother hosted Christmas dinners and seated me near the kitchen because you don't mind helping. The house my grandfather had apparently paid off before he died. I knew that now. They didn't know I knew. "How?" I asked. My mother's mouth tightened. "There were financial complications." Caleb looked away. I almost laughed. Financial complications. In my family, that phrase usually meant Caleb had made a decision and my parents had renamed it something polite. "How much?" I asked. My father rubbed the back of his neck. 280,000. My receptionist dropped one of the folders. The lobby went silent. $280,000. There are numbers that sound like money, and then there are numbers that sound like a confession. I looked at Caleb. He looked annoyed. Not ashamed, annoyed, like I was taking too long to solve his problem. "What did you do?" I asked him. He spread his hands. "Why does it automatically have to be me?" Because it always was. Because I had spent my childhood watching my parents build a bridge out of my opportunities so Caleb could walk comfortably over every mistake he made. Because my grandfather had left money for both of us, and somehow only one of us had ever received it. Because 2 weeks ago, I had learned that my college fund hadn't disappeared. It had been transferred. To Caleb. Twice. But I didn't say that. Not yet. My mother stepped between us. "This is exactly what I mean. You used to be kind. You used to care about family." I smiled faintly. "No, I used to be easier to use." Her face changed. Not enough for strangers to notice. Enough for me. My father's voice dropped. "That's uncalled for." "What's uncalled for is showing up at my company and asking me for almost $300,000 without even explaining why." "We are not asking," my mother said. That stopped me. "Excuse me?" She lifted her chin. "We're reminding you of your responsibility." There it was, the sentence that split the room in half. My assistant looked at me, horrified. Caleb looked almost relieved. My father stared at the floor. And I realized something very strange. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was tired. So tired that for 1 second I felt like I was outside my own body, watching a scene that had been playing in different forms for 20 years. "Mara, give up your room. Mara, don't upset your brother. Mara, understand your parents. Mara, family comes first. Mara, success changed you. No. Success had only given me the one thing they never wanted me to have. Options. I turned to my assistant. Jenna, please take the investors to conference room 2. Tell them I'll be 5 minutes. She nodded quickly and walked away. My mother's eyes followed her. You have people now? I have employees. You know what I mean. I do. That's the problem. Caleb laughed under his breath. You're really enjoying this, aren't you? I looked at him. Enjoying what? Acting better than us. That one almost got me. Because once, that accusation would have made me shrink. I would have rushed to prove I was humble, grateful, still the same Mara, still safe, still available.
But I had learned something in the last decade. People who benefit from your low self-worth will always call your boundaries arrogance. I reached into my blazer pocket and silenced my phone. Another message from Elise, then another. My mother noticed. Are we interrupting something important? Yes. She blinked. I continued. My life. For a second, nobody spoke. Then my father sighed like I had disappointed him. The sound was so familiar it almost felt like home. We didn't raise you to be like this, he said. That was the moment the first crack opened. Because he was right. They hadn't. They had raised me to apologize when I was hurt, to share when I had nothing, to feel selfish for wanting the same chances Caleb got for free. They had raised me to be useful, not successful, not independent, useful. And now they were standing in my lobby, confused that their tool had become a person. I have a meeting, I said. You need to leave. My mother's eyes widened. Mara, I'm serious. We drove 4 hours. You should have called, Caleb scoffed. Wow. My father finally looked angry. If your grandfather could see you now. I raised one hand. Don't. He stopped. The lobby seemed to tighten around us. My grandfather was the only person in my family who had ever looked at me and seen more than what I could give. He taught me how to balance a checkbook when I was 12. He slipped me business books when my mother bought Caleb sports gear. He told me, you have a mind that sees the door before other people know they're in a room. When he died, I was 15. My parents told me he had left a small trust for my education, but medical bills had eaten most of it. I had believed them because I was a child. Children believe the people who hold the house keys. Then Elise sent me the scanned trust documents. My grandfather hadn't left me a small trust. He had left me $146,000, specifically for education, housing, and early business development. And my parents had petitioned to become temporary trustees until I turned 18. The money was gone by the time I graduated high school. Not from medical bills, not from emergencies, from transfers, from withdrawals, from checks written to Caleb's private school, Caleb's car loan, Caleb's failed first business, Caleb's apartment deposit. And one check made out to my father, the $30,000, labelled Family Debt Restructuring. I had stared at that phrase for almost an hour. Family debt restructuring. Such a clean phrase for theft. My father must have seen something shift in my face because his anger softened into caution. Mara, he said carefully, we are not your enemies.
I almost believed he believed that. That was the saddest part. I have to go upstairs. My mother's voice turned cold. If you walk away from us right now, don't expect us to keep pretending we don't know what money has done to you. I turned back. What money did to me? Yes. Her voice rose just enough to perform pain for the room. You used to be humble. You used to answer our calls. You used to visit. You used to care about your family. Then this company happened, and suddenly you became someone who looks at her own parents like strangers. Something inside me went very still. Because for years, I had wondered whether I was the cruel one. Maybe I had changed. Maybe success had hardened me. Maybe money had made me suspicious. But standing there, hearing her rewrite a decade of my absence into a character flaw, I finally understood. I hadn't stopped answering because I became rich. I stopped answering because every call had a cost. A bill, a favour, a guilt trip, a crisis with Caleb. A reminder that love in my family always arrived with an invoice. My company didn't happen, I said. I built it. Caleb rolled his eyes. Oh, here we go. I faced him. You want to say something? He stepped closer. You got lucky.
You found some investors, made some app, hired people smarter than you, and now you act like you're self-made. My employees could hear him. My clients might hear him. The old Mara would have been humiliated. The new Mara noticed something else. He was nervous. Insults were Caleb's smokescreen. He used them when facts were nearby. What exactly do you need the money for? I asked. My mother answered too fast. To save the house. From what? The bank. Which bank? Silence. My father shifted. Caleb looked at my mother. There it was. A small gap, a loose thread. I pulled. Which bank, Mum? She looked wounded again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. You don't trust us? No. The word landed harder than I expected. My father flinched. Caleb's jaw tightened. My mother whispered, Success really did change you. I stepped toward her. No, information did. For the first time, she looked afraid. Only briefly, but I saw it. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee anything. My phone vibrated again. This time I looked. Elise Park. Do not give them anything. The lien isn't from the mortgage. Call me when you can. I read the message twice. The lien isn't from the mortgage. My mouth went dry. Because that meant the house wasn't in danger because of normal debt. It was collateral, or attached, or tied to something else. I looked at Caleb. He looked away again. Of course. My meeting upstairs no longer mattered, not compared to this. I turned to Jenna, who had quietly returned near the hallway. Please move the investors to 4 o'clock and apologise for me. Offer them lunch on us. She nodded. My mother relaxed slightly. She thought she had won. She thought I was clearing my schedule to help. I pressed the elevator button. Come upstairs. Caleb smiled. Finally. That smile almost made me change my mind and make them leave.
but I needed answers.
And I had learned the hard way that people like my family only tell the truth when they think lying is about to become more expensive. The elevator ride was silent. My mother stood beside me, smelling like expensive floral perfume and old judgment. My father stared at the doors. Caleb checked his phone. When the elevator opened onto the executive floor, my mother's eyes widened again. She tried to hide it. She failed. The floor was bright, quiet, elegant. Glass walls, warm wood, soft lights, people working behind screens. A place I had imagined years ago while eating instant noodles in an apartment where the ceiling leaked whenever it rained. My mother looked around like I had stolen all of it from someone more deserving. Maybe from Caleb. I led them into the smaller conference room, the one without the city view. That was petty. I allowed myself that. Caleb noticed. No big corner office. You don't need scenery for the truth. He laughed, but nobody joined him. I closed the door. Sit. My mother's eyebrows lifted. I beg your pardon? You wanted to talk. Sit. For the first time in my life, my parents sat because I told them to. It should have felt satisfying. It didn't. It felt heavy, like standing in a room with ghosts who still knew your childhood nickname. I sat across from them, folded my hands. Start from the beginning. My father cleared his throat. We made some investments that didn't perform well. What investments? He glanced at Caleb. Caleb looked annoyed again. Dad helped me expand. Expand what? My consulting firm. I almost smiled. Caleb's consulting firm was 3 LinkedIn posts and a rented office he used for selfies. What kind of expansion costs $280,000? He leaned back. You wouldn't understand. That was his favorite line. He used it when I was 11 and asked why he got new shoes when mine had holes. He used it when I was 19 and asked why his apartment was paid for while I worked weekends. You wouldn't understand. Translation, we don't have a good answer. I turned to my father. You put the house up. My mother interrupted. We believed in your brother. I looked at her. You mortgaged the house for Caleb? We invested in family, she said. No, you invested in Caleb. Her face hardened. He had a vision. I laughed once. I didn't mean to. It just escaped. Caleb's eyes flashed. Careful. That word, careful. From a man asking me for almost $300,000. I leaned forward. Or what? He opened his mouth, closed it. My father looked exhausted. We thought it would work. How much did you borrow? No one answered. How much? My mother's voice was tight. 400,000. The room went silent. Even Caleb stopped pretending to be bored. 400,000. That was not a mistake. That was a pattern. What happened to it? Caleb rubbed his jaw. Marketing, office space, product development. What product? He looked at my mother. I almost whispered, unbelievable. Because now I understood. There was no product. There was no real firm. There was only Caleb's fantasy, my parents' denial, and a house dragged behind both like collateral damage.
Where did the money actually go? I asked. Caleb stood. I don't have to sit here and be interrogated by you. Yes, I said. You do. He laughed. You think because you have a fancy conference table. I think because you came here asking me for money. His face flushed. My mother stood too. We came because we thought you still had a heart. No, I said. You came because every other option is gone. That hit. My father's hand moved slightly on the table. My mother blinked too fast. Caleb looked at the door. I knew then there was more, not just debt, not just the house. Something else. What aren't you telling me? My mother sat slowly. Mara. There was a softness in her voice I hadn't heard in years. That scared me more than her anger. What aren't you telling me? I repeated. My father whispered, Your uncle called the note. I stared at him. Uncle Raymond? My mother closed her eyes. Now the room truly shifted. Uncle Raymond wasn't really my uncle. He was my father's oldest friend, a man who wore gold rings and smelled like cigar smoke, who always hugged too tightly at Thanksgiving and called me little lady until I was 25. He owned half the rental properties in our county. He also had a reputation for lending money to people who couldn't get it from banks. What note? I asked. Caleb muttered. It was temporary. I turned slowly toward him. What note? My father's voice cracked. We borrowed from Raymond to cover the payments. How much? No answer. How much? My mother whispered. 120,000. I stood up. Not because I wanted to intimidate them, because sitting still suddenly felt impossible. So let me understand. You borrowed 400,000 against the house for Caleb's non-existent business. Then, when payments started failing, you borrowed 120,000 from Raymond to cover the first loan. It wasn't non-existent, Caleb snapped. I ignored him. And now Raymond called the note. My father nodded. When? Friday. It was Tuesday. And the bank? My mother said, if we don't settle Raymond, he'll force the lien. Then the bank will accelerate. I looked out through the glass wall at my employees working quietly beyond the conference room. People who trusted me. People who relied on me to make clear decisions. And inside that room sat the 3 people who had trained me to doubt myself. For a moment, I felt 17 again, standing in the kitchen, holding my acceptance letter, hearing my mother say, Community college is still college, Mara. Don't be dramatic. My grandfather's money had already been gone. Caleb had already been chosen. And I had thanked them for doing their best. That memory tasted like metal. My mother saw my face and mistook it for surrender. We know it's a lot, she said quickly, but you have it now. There it was. Not can you help, not we're sorry, not we know we have no right, just you have it now. As if my success was a family emergency fund they had patiently waited to access. I turned from the window. I'm not giving you money. My mother froze. My father shut his eyes. Caleb slammed his hand on the table. You selfish! Finish that sentence carefully. He pointed at me. You owe us. I almost laughed again, but this time nothing came out. because beneath the rage, beneath the absurdity, there was something almost fascinating about his confidence. "Oh, you what?" I asked. "Our parents sacrificed for you too." I looked at my mother. She wouldn't look at me. My father wouldn't either, and suddenly the words arrived before I could stop them. "With my money?" The room went dead. Not quiet. Dead. My mother's face lost colour so fast I knew. My father opened his eyes. Caleb blinked. There it was. The secret had entered the room, and unlike the rest of us, it did not sit down politely. "What did you say?" my mother whispered. I reached into my bag and took out the folder Elise had sent by courier that morning. I had not planned to use it that day. I thought I would need weeks, maybe months. I thought I would have to prepare myself emotionally. But some truths don't wait for perfect timing. I placed the folder on the table. My father stared at it like it might explode. Caleb looked confused. That told me he didn't know everything. Good. I opened the folder and removed the first document. Grandpa Daniel's trust. My mother's lips parted. "Mara." "No." She stopped. I slid the document across the table. "He left me $146,000. Not a little money, not almost nothing after medical bills. $146,000. Caleb looked at my parents. "What is she talking about?" Neither answered. I continued. "You petitioned to become trustees until I turned 18. My father whispered, "We were your parents." "You were thieves." My mother gasped. But this time, she didn't look offended. She looked caught. Caleb grabbed the paper and scanned it. His expression changed slowly. Confusion. Irritation. Then something else. Calculation. I watched him discover that even he had been lied to. That should have satisfied me. It didn't. It made the whole thing sadder. "Where did it go?" I asked. Nobody moved. So I pulled out the transfer records. "Caleb's tuition at St. Mark's." I placed one page down. "Caleb's car." Another page. "Caleb's apartment." Another. "Caleb's business license." Another. "Dad's personal debt restructuring." The last page landed harder than the rest. My father covered his mouth. My mother stared at the table. Caleb's face turned red. "You used her money for me?" he asked. My mother's head snapped up. "Don't act like you didn't benefit." "I didn't know. You never asked." That sentence revealed more than any confession could. You never asked. Of course he didn't. Golden children rarely ask where the gold comes from. They just learn to expect shine. Caleb dropped the papers. "So what? This is revenge?" I looked at him. "No, this is accounting." My mother's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, maybe. Or maybe just panic. "We were trying to keep the family together." I leaned back. "No, you were trying to keep Caleb comfortable." "Mara, please." That word. Please. How strange to hear it from her. She had said it when she wanted me to babysit, when she wanted me to forgive, when she wanted me to stop making things awkward. But never like this. Never from below me. I hated that part of myself that noticed. My father finally spoke.
We always meant to pay it back. I looked at him for a long time. Then why didn't you tell me? He had no answer. Of course he didn't, because if they had told me, they would have had to see me as someone capable of being harmed. And they had built an entire family system around not seeing that. My phone vibrated again. Elise. Raymond filed preliminary notice this morning. Also, there's something else. Call ASAP. Something else. My stomach tightened. Of course there was something else. There always was. I gathered the documents back into the folder. My mother reached for my hand. I moved it away. Her face broke then. Not because I moved away, because for the first time, she understood I meant it. "Mara," she said, voice shaking. "We made mistakes." I stood. "No, you made choices." My father whispered, "Are you going to sue us?" That was the first honest question of the day. I looked at him. "I haven't decided." My mother let out a small sound. Caleb stood again. "You wouldn't." I turned to him. "Why not?" "Because they're your parents." "And what was I?" He stared. I said it again, quieter. "What was I?" No one answered. That was answer enough. I picked up the folder and walked to the door. This conversation is over for now. My mother stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "You can't just leave us like this!" I turned back. "That's exactly what you did to me." Then I opened the door. Outside, the office was too quiet. Everyone pretended not to listen. Everyone had listened. My family walked out behind me like strangers leaving a funeral. At the elevator, my mother stopped. "You think money makes you powerful," she said. I pressed the button. "No." The doors opened. I looked at all three of them. "Evidence does." The doors closed between us. And for the first time in my life, I did not feel guilty watching my family disappear. But I also didn't feel free. Not yet. Because 30 seconds later, Elise called. I answered in my office with the door locked. Her voice was tense. "Mara, are you alone?" "Yes." "I pulled the county records. Raymond's lien isn't just against your parents' house." I sat slowly. "What do you mean?" There was a pause. Then she said the sentence that made the floor feel like it dropped beneath me. "He's claiming an interest in your company." I didn't understand at first. "That's impossible." "It should be." "What does that mean?" "It means someone used old trust-related documents to suggest seed money from your grandfather's estate helped start your business." My hand went cold around the phone. "That's not true." "I know, but if Raymond can create enough doubt, he can pressure you into settlement." I stared through the glass at the city below. Cars moving, people walking, life continuing as if my past hadn't just climbed through the window. "Who gave him those documents?" I asked. Elise was quiet, but I already knew. Only 3 people had been in that conference room. Only 3 people had motive. And only one of them smiled when things burned. Caleb. My brother hadn't just come to ask for money. He had come to see how much I knew. And now, somehow, he was trying to take the one thing I had built without them. My company. My name. My future. I stood up slowly, staring at the folder on my desk. For years, I thought my family had stolen my past. Now I realized they were not finished. They were coming for my future too. And this time, I was not 17. This time, I had lawyers. I had records. I had witnesses. And I had learned something my parents never taught me. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is stop protecting the people who destroyed you. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, because for the first time in years, everything finally made sense. The favoritism, the lies, the missing money, the endless guilt. The strange way every family crisis somehow became my responsibility. None of it had been accidental. It had been a system. And systems don't collapse because people suddenly become honest. They collapse because someone finally shines a light on them. The next morning, I met Elise. She arrived carrying 3 thick folders and a laptop. The moment she sat down in my office, I knew the situation was worse than I thought. "Tell me everything," I said. She opened the first folder. "Your brother isn't just desperate." She slid a document across the desk. "He's drowning." I looked down. Multiple loans, personal guarantees, unpaid taxes, credit defaults, several lawsuits, one after another. The numbers seemed unreal. Nearly $800,000. I looked up. How? Elise gave a small laugh, not because it was funny, because she couldn't believe it either. He kept borrowing to cover previous losses. A familiar story. The same story people tell themselves when reality becomes inconvenient. One more loan, one more investment, one more chance. Until the hole becomes too deep to climb out of. Then she opened the second folder. And that's when things changed. Completely. "Mara," her voice lowered, "I think your parents know more than they're admitting." I felt my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" She turned her laptop toward me. A scanned bank statement appeared, then another, then another. Transfers, large transfers, repeated transfers, over several years. From my grandfather's trust, to accounts I recognized, my father's, my mother's, Caleb's. Then one account I didn't recognize. "What's that?" Elise looked at me. "That's Raymond." The room went silent. For a moment I thought I misunderstood. "Raymond got money from Grandpa's trust?" She nodded. Multiple transfers. Over $20,000. Years before Caleb's business existed. Years before the mortgage problems. Years before any of the excuses. Which meant something terrifying. The trust money hadn't been stolen because the family was desperate. The money had been stolen because they wanted it. That realization hit harder than everything else. Not because of the money, because of what it meant. For years I had made excuses for them. Maybe they struggled. Maybe they had no choice. Maybe they were trying their best. No, they had choices. They simply chose themselves, every single time.
Then Elise delivered the final blow. The trust wasn't the only thing. I stared at her. What? She opened the last folder. Inside was a property record. Old, very old, almost forgotten. My grandfather had owned a small piece of commercial land outside Richmond, years ago. The land had been sold after his death, or at least that's what everyone believed. But according to the records, it had never been sold. It had been transferred quietly, transferred through a chain of paperwork, transferred into a company owned by my father. I couldn't breathe. The land was worth almost $2 million today. My grandfather had intended it to stay inside the trust. Instead, it disappeared. And suddenly I understood everything. The trust wasn't the crime. The trust was just the piece I discovered first. The real story was much bigger, much older, much uglier. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, "What happens now?" Elise closed the folder. "Now we decide whether you want justice or peace." I looked out the window. I already knew. People think those two things are the same. They're not. Sometimes peace requires letting things go. Sometimes justice requires dragging everything into the light. And I was tired of darkness. 3 days later, I filed suit. Not against Caleb, against all of them. Mum, Dad, the trust, the transfers, the hidden property, everything. The moment the lawsuit became public, my phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails, family friends, distant cousins, church members, people who had never called me before. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. "Mara, they're your parents." "Mara, families make mistakes." "Mara, don't destroy them." Funny. Nobody had called when I was working double shifts. Nobody had called when my college fund disappeared. Nobody had called when I slept in apartments with broken heating systems. But now everyone cared. Because now there were consequences. The first person to show up was Caleb. He arrived at my office 2 weeks later, alone. No confidence, no smirk, no performance. Just fear. He sat across from me, looking older than I remembered. "What do you want?" I asked. He stared at the floor. Then he said something I never expected. "I didn't know." For a second, I said nothing. Because I believed him. Not completely, but enough. He knew he benefited. He knew he was favored. But I don't think he knew how much had been stolen. Not until recently. He rubbed his face. "Dad told me everything." I waited. "He said they thought they'd fix it later." Of course they did. That's how these stories always begin. Temporary. Just this once. We'll make it right later. Then years pass. And later never comes. Caleb looked up. "I know you hate me." "I don't hate you." He seemed surprised. I continued. "I just stopped protecting you." That hit harder than anger. He nodded slowly. Then he stood, and before leaving he said, "They're terrified."
For the first time in my life, so was he. Months passed. Discovery began. Records surfaced. Witnesses appeared. Old accountants were interviewed. Former attorneys testified. And one by one, the lies collapsed. The biggest surprise came from my father, not because he fought, because he didn't. Halfway through the case, he requested a private meeting. When he entered the room, he looked 20 years older. The confidence was gone. The excuses were gone. Even the pride seemed exhausted. He sat down and said, "I don't expect forgiveness." That was new. Very new. Then he told me the truth. The whole truth. The favoritism had started when Caleb was born sick. Complications, hospital visits, years of worry. My parents became obsessed with protecting him. Then protecting became excusing. Excusing became enabling. Enabling became sacrificing everyone else, especially me. They never noticed the transition, until it became their identity. Until Caleb wasn't a son anymore. He was a project. And everyone else existed to support the project, including me. My father cried while telling me. Real tears. The kind I've never seen from him. When he finished, he whispered, "We kept telling ourselves we'd make it fair later." I stared at him, then asked the question that had haunted me for years. "Why didn't you choose me too?" His face broke, and for a long moment he couldn't answer. Eventually he whispered, "I thought you didn't need us." That hurt more than every lie, because I knew he believed it. Strong children often become invisible. People see competence and assume comfort. They see independence and assume support isn't necessary. But every child wants to be chosen. Every child. No exceptions. The lawsuit ended 11 months later. Not with a dramatic courtroom victory, not with handcuffs, not with a movie ending. Something better. Evidence. The truth won. The court ordered restitution. The trust violations were confirmed. The property transfers were reversed. Assets were liquidated. The debts were paid. The hidden land was returned to the estate. And for the first time in decades, everything was documented. Permanent. Official. Real. The story could never be rewritten again. My mother stopped speaking to me, at least for a while. According to relatives, she told everyone success changed me. Maybe she truly believed that. Then something unexpected happened. About a year later, she asked to meet. Just us. No lawyers, no family, no Caleb, no father. Just us. We met at a small cafe. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone carrying a version of reality that finally became too heavy. For several minutes she said nothing. Then she asked, "When did I lose you?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who packed school lunches. The woman who forgot my achievements. The woman who taught me kindness. The woman who taught me guilt. The woman who loved me and failed me. Both were true. Finally, I answered, "You didn't lose me when I became successful." Her eyes filled.
You lost me when I learned the truth. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she cried. And for once, I didn't try to stop her. Because some pain belongs to the person who created it. A few months later, she sent me a letter. No excuses, no manipulation, no blame. Just accountability. The first real one I had ever received. We aren't close now, but we're honest. And honestly, that's worth more. As for Caleb, he started over. Actually started over. No shortcuts, no rescue missions, no family bailouts. A regular job, a regular apartment, a regular life. And strangely, he seems happier.
Maybe because for the first time, it's actually his. Last month he called me, just to talk. No requests, no emergencies, no money. Just a conversation. It lasted 20 minutes. It felt like meeting my brother for the first time. And me? People still ask if success changed me. They see the company, the building, the money, the life, and they assume that's what created the distance. But they're wrong. Success didn't change me. Success simply gave me enough stability to stop lying to myself. The truth changed everything. The truth changed my parents. The truth changed my brother. The truth changed our family. And the strangest part? The truth didn't destroy us. The lies did. The truth simply stopped protecting them. And once that happened, everyone finally had to become who they really were. Including me. The end.